So let's dive right in and talk a little bit about the education system currently as we know it today, as we are experiencing it today, through the 3 different schools that we are going to. And Lucero pointed out right before this video started that we all represent one branch of the CU schools. So I'm currently at CU Denver. I am an accounting major, and I'm a 3rd-year student.
Yup, Sco Buff. I'm from CU Boulder. You already know.
What are you studying, Tony?
Biomedical engineering.
And for those of y'all who missed it, Lucero's at CU in the Springs.
Yes.
So first of all, what's going on in the world today, y'all? The one just minor detail and why we're doing this over Zoom and not across the table from each other. We're currently experiencing a global pandemic that has been hitting us hard since, some people say December. We felt it all in March, right? March is when we went into lockdown. Sorry, all the dates have started to just merge.
I feel like it was February.
Yeah.
When it started to, the conversation started to come up.
Oh my God. I
remember talking to my friend about this. It really lasted the whole 2020. And it's projected to keep going, into 2021. Even with the vaccine. It's so crazy to think about.
I remember, too, when it first started, I was, trying to downplay it a little bit, I think because I was scared. But at the same time, I was like, it's just a flu. Just watch, from what people were saying, too. And it wasn't huge here in the U.S. yet either. But I was like, people, just wash your hands. Just don't sneeze on each other. That's what you're supposed to do all the time. So I remember just, telling myself that, telling my friends that. Just wash your hands. Just take care of yourself. You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And then kind of as things went on, they kicked us out of school and they quarantined us and everything. They closed down businesses and stuff. I was like, are we gonna be okay though?
Yeah. What was everybody doing at the time? What were you all doing because I was in an internship at the Capitol. So in the middle of legislation, everything just shuts down and we're sent home. And I was already taking classes online since I was working part-time and doing my internship. But what was so weird is I would spend almost every day on the Senate floor. And then suddenly, how do you do legislature from home, right? And the answer was you don't. So a lot of legislators still and senators still had to do session in person, which was really, really scary.
Yeah. No, it really hit everyone by surprise. I know for me, I was still here at school and I was doing my job at the engineering center here. And I remember, fun fact, I got the news that we were closing right in the middle of my mental breakdown. So that was pretty fun. But literally I remember in class, just when everyone had got that notification that the teacher didn't know, none of the teachers knew what was happening. It was I don't know how we're going to do this class. One of my engineering projects teacher was on the verge of crying because he was literally this is my first year teaching here. And not only am I not being able to teach you guys, but not only that, it's we can't teach engineering online. How am I going to do a project course online? And it was just really bad because a lot of teachers just didn't know what the hell to do. And a lot of students were scared. Well, some students were scared. There's a lot of knuckleheads who didn't really care about COVID and still don't care about COVID.
There's still a lot of knuckleheads who don't care about COVID.
And it was just weird because it was just even my boss and them, we were I remember we were just all closing down the engineering center and everything. And it was just so much sadness and that whole idea of what's going to happen in the air, because it was people I feel we knew the severity of it at that time because we were closing down. It was because we're all nerds, we all know science and shit, so we were all yeah, we know how bad this is going to get. And so it was more just like, dang, like we're saying we're going to see you next year, but like you guys are pretty old, so we might not even know if we're going to see you next year. Like,
Oh,
so like it was like kind of emotional, and it really.
oh my goodness. Wow. What about you?
I was some of my classes, some of my professors had like started to spread the rumor, like, just so you guys know, there's talk that we might shift online because, you know, like everything going on with COVID is starting to spread a lot faster and we can't handle it. So people were kind of starting to hear rumors about it here and there. And then I was sitting in my in a classroom. I was sitting in class, and we all got an email, all of us at the same time. And this kid raises his hand, and he's like, "Did you just see this email?" And we're like, "What?" No, we open our email, and it says that we're moving virtually, like the whole school. And that I was like, "Oh, for spring break." It was right before spring break. So at first, I was, like I said, I think trying to downplay it. I was like, well, it can't be that serious. Like, they're just trying to be safe. They're just whatever, right? And then at the time I was also working. So I nannied a 10-month-old. He was 15 months when I left. So I had to say bye to him, and they just had a new baby that I haven't met yet. And I'm really sad about that. I miss them a lot because I grew really close with the 15-month-old. But so I remember too, I called my mom, and I was so scared because they said we couldn't stay on campus. And I called her and I was crying. I was like, what's going to happen to us? What's going to happen to my little cousin who had gotten sick? Like, what about my grandparents? Like, I was just really scared. And then, yeah, they had us move out for spring break. And then they decided that we were going to move out for the rest of the semester. So I had to go back and get all of my stuff. And then, yeah, then we just shifted online. The shift wasn't too difficult for me, honestly. A lot of my professors kind of toned it down. They just said, okay, these huge assignments we're going to leave them, but we're not going to quiz you every week, and we're going to like hop on a video call every week or whatever. So it was honestly pretty easy and low key for me shifting onto online. But like the emotional toll, I think, was what was harder for me.
I just tried to grasp at what was normal. And I still had a job. Luckily, thankfully, gratefully. I was still working at the bank, and I still had my internship going. Doing an internship virtually for the Capitol was weird. But I'm definitely grateful to all of the people who made that possible. And it was just texting and calling back to back constantly, communication, etc. And obviously Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
And on top of that, but the one thing that did scare me is at the banks, my first job, aside from the internship, didn't require us to wear masks up until, I want to say April. Or maybe later.
Probably later.
Yeah, probably way later. And we just recently got like shields guarding us from people's germs or whatever in a little slot to like slide them whatever it is we need to give them. And work hasn't felt safe ever since, because I obviously I deal with money, and you have to touch it, and you constantly have to wash your hands, and that's the one part where I was really scared. So I'm a really big introvert. I'm a really, really big extrovert. Y'all both were like, no, you're not. I'm a really big extrovert. So just not seeing you guys or seeing any of my friends, it was really, really hard, especially since I had just gotten back from a trip. When I landed is when I got when I got back to Denver is when I got the notification that we were going into lockdown. I didn't.
We like you were saying about like how it's hard to be away from other people. I mean, we, even if you are an introvert, we are a social species, you know, like
Yeah.
we with each other,
Mm-hmm.
despite, you know, how shy you are, how introverted you are. That's
Yeah.
just something that we need.
I think there was more than the emotional, well, I guess everything takes an emotional toll on you. I was terrified. Terrified to touch surfaces, terrified to be in a room with more than 10 people, just terrified of everything all the time. Getting into the car immediately, the wipes on the steering wheel, whatever, like getting home, taking off the shoes, leaving them at the door. There was a point in time where an article came out that COVID sticks to the bottom of your soles because of the pavement and it's dirty. And I understand that it's like it's what, how do you, oh my God. The word is in Spanish in my brain and then,
What is
yeah.
it?
Um, sanitary? It's more sanitary to take off your shoes and then enter your house. Um, but just so many things that we have to think about, right? Now that we didn't think about before. And then I wonder, like, is this also how we have such bad flu seasons? I feel like, especially in Colorado, we have such terrible flu seasons, and college campuses are like known to be terrible. And so are like high schools and middle schools. And when I worked at an elementary school, I would get sick all the time. So now you think about like how clean are, number one, are we keeping our houses, the places where we live, where we feel the most safe? How clean are we keeping our workspaces, and how clean are we keeping our schools, which are always the number one places at risk for you to get sick or get infected. And so this question of how safe do you feel on campus at COVID is striking. For me right now, I'm doing all of my schoolwork at home. I don't go anywhere other than home and school. And I mean, not school. I don't go to school. I go to school online. You see, it's so weird to talk about, right? But yeah, the only two places where I am most of the time are at home or at work, and then it's just that back and forth and back and forth. So, uh, sorry, I think I kind of took over that sort of segment. If you all had anything else to add.
I mean, I just think it's crazy because it's like at the start of it, a lot of people kept saying things of like, "Oh, society is going to change," or it's more of like also like, "Oh, guys, it's like a great thing. Like society, we'll be able to like be by ourselves, and and it's great, you know." And I think that was just like bullshit. I mean, like, of course, it's great to be alone. It's great to like be alone with your thoughts, but being alone for too long, even for an introvert, like you can,
Yeah.
it can be really bad on you mentally, especially if you are struggling with mental health. Like it's already bad for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of interesting because it's like people keep thinking that everything's going to change. Like you see some, and I want to say some, emphasize that some companies like actually doing what they were always supposed to do. Like you saw a video on Facebook of like, oh look, there's a movie theater like actually sanitizing the chairs and stuff like that. It's like, shouldn't you always been doing that? You know?
Oh yeah.
And it's like they think it's going to change, but even coming here to college, a lot of things haven't changed in a sense. Like it's like things are different, but it's going to be back to how it was before. Like it's not going to change. You can feel that in the air, especially with the mindset that people have, the administration have, and all of that. Like not much is going to change. And I feel like we do have to make that change definitely, because we are, I don't know, it's just how we handle this whole thing was terrible, and how we don't have any respect for other people as far as like germ wise is pretty bad to like if you really think about it. And it's not that like I feel safe on campus. I wouldn't say that I feel safe. I guess for me, my mindset is just like I've been through so much stuff and I survived so much stuff that like it doesn't even like scare me. Like
Mm.
even when COVID happened, like my main thing was just like, oh snap, my mom, or like, oh snap, like how am I going to do school? But it was never me, like, oh, I'm going to get sick or I'm going to die, because like
Mhm.
that doesn't ever like process in my mind, because like
Mhm.
it just doesn't. And so being here in college, like there's people who's afraid, and I'm just like, I mean, yeah, it's like I understand the severity of it, and we have to, you know, social distance, keep your mask on, stuff like that, and I have to make sure I do that every day and stuff like that, and get tested every week. But at the end of the day, it's like people aren't going to change. Like at the end of the day, it's is what it is. Like COVID is going to spread, and it has been spreading quickly. Um, so no, it's not that I feel safe. I don't think anyone here feels safe, because it's not safe here. But we are here because we have to be here. Like as an RA, I have to be here, and I know like with school, I will not be able to focus at home. So it's more just like I have to be here. So if I don't, then like everything's going down the drain for me.
I agree with you, Tony. I feel like I have to be on campus too because, well, I pay for my school on my own. I don't really get a lot of help, not even from like FAFSA or from the school itself. So being an RA helps me a ton save on tuition. And although all of my classes right now are online, if I hadn't taken that job, what's the guarantee that I would have gotten it next semester or the semester afterwards when we actually can be on campus? So I would be putting my, like just by staying home for one semester, I could be putting my future at UCCS at risk. Mm-hmm. So it was like hard for me to make that decision. Like, do I put, my health and my safety at risk, or do I put my future at risk? I think that, like Tony said, because we're both RAs, we see students maybe like not taking it as seriously as they should. I mean, you want to have friends. You want to make friends. That's what you go to college for. You go to college to meet new people, to party every night if that's what you like to do because you're away from your home. Like, and you don't want to do that with a mask on or sitting 6 feet away from somebody. I get it, but at the same time, it's kind of like, I think this whole experience has also tried, like you were talking about, Tony, tried to teach us to think about our actions and how it affects other people, how our health can affect somebody else's health. And I think that's something that we've needed for a really long time, is just responsibility to keep each other safe. And this might be one of the learning stepping stones for that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think about working at my station, right? And every time I take a new customer, and I'm seeing the customer service side of it. I appreciate you all giving us the perspective of what it's like to be on campus, actually, and being an RA and having to deal with a lot of those behaviors. On the customer service side, honestly, it's not that much different. People will come into an establishment and refuse to wear a mask and refuse to take this seriously. People, and it's like how the longest transaction or the longest interaction I've had with a customer takes maybe about 7 minutes longest, and people will refuse to wear a mask for a 7-minute transaction, if not 2 minutes. And or a 7-minute interaction, or not, if not 2-minute interaction. And it's insane. It's insane. And I also, having to come around to my station to the front where the customer side is on, and then wiping it down, has made me think a lot about why didn't we do this before? Why did we not sanitize this before? People are coming and putting their like purses on there. People are getting out of work. People are doing something, and sometimes I come around and you can literally see crumbs or residue or something that was left on there. And I'm like, okay, I know you can't see a COVID germ with your eye, but I can clearly see that this person brought something in here, and then if I didn't sanitize it, somebody else was going to have to sit there or
like
have that
thing with the seats at a movie theater. Like
yeah, should you not be doing this all the time? But just to really reiterate that point of, wow, like our future is being completely reshaped and reformed right in front of our eyes, and it will be up to us whether we keep enforcing that or not.
Mhm.
I recently saw an article of when high schools started being in session, again, that some students posted pictures of crowded hallways where having masks, or wearing these masks were not required, just heavily suggested or heavily recommended. And yeah, many high school students were seen in that picture. It was really crowded. But that scares me, right? That scares me for my little brother who's in high school and he's doing all of his work from home, but even that's challenging. How do you teach a high school teacher to do all of their teaching online? How do you how do you support a high school, elementary, middle school student to do their work online as well? And all of that can get really, really frustrating. And then if you do have those schools in person, how are you keeping your students safe? Especially when you are not enforcing the mask policy, which is really the bare minimum that we can do is wear masks and wash your hands. That is the bare minimum, and it's still not being enforced. These, I believe it was 4 students. They were suspended
For sharing.
school for sharing that photo. The district and the school claimed that it was defamation of character. And that's insane to me because these students, what do we naturally do, y'all, when we feel that something in our school isn't fair, that some policy is against the justice of the people, right? You speak up. How? On social media platforms. Hello, here we are, right? Like, that is what we do naturally, and that is now in this generation's nature. In Generation Z's nature. When you see something, you say something, you post it on Twitter, you post it on Facebook, right? That sort of culture is not going to go away, and the people in positions of power are trying to silence that, and I think they don't realize that this sort of culture of like, if I see it, it's unjust, I will post it, and you're going to get put on blast, it's never going to go away because we're never not going to have the internet anymore.
Yeah. And I think really, I mean, it's showing us 2 things. One, like, they don't really care about us. And 2, how we're being exploited. I mean, truly. Like, and I'm going to touch on both of those. One, how they don't really care about us is just like, they didn't really care about this. Like, I hate when they say in the article, it said like, oh, we can't really force the students to wear masks. Like, yes, you can. Like, yes, you can. You can tell them and then force them to wear masks. Like, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But you can
And
force a girl not to wear tank tops in class.
right,
Like, what are you talking about?
right. How can you force a girl who's wearing a shirt that has spaghetti straps or a strap that's less than these 3? How can you tell her to go home and miss out on her education, but you can't tell these students to put a mask on because if they don't, they'll get sick and miss out on their education?
Exactly.
And sometimes more than their education, their health, their well-being, even after you get COVID, the side effects of recovering from COVID, the damage that is done to your lungs, to many other organs, is disastrous. It's disastrous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then it's also like and it's so interesting to see like how they say, oh, we gave them a choice, but then all of the online spots were filled, right? And it's like, one, you're already missing out on a lot of students who don't feel safe coming to school, but they're poor students who can't afford Wi-Fi, who doesn't have a laptop, so they have to come to school, right? But you don't want to make it safe for them, right? Additionally, like for colleges in particular, like me being an RA, me and the other RAs talk about this all of the time, how at the end of the day, we're just being exploited because of the simple fact that it's not safe for us, but we do all of the enforcing right now. We take care of the residents. Like, we have to come in contact with everyone during COVID, no matter what. Even CUPD, like the police department doesn't even want to come and be in contact with everyone. So we are the people who is doing everything that the university should be doing.
Right.
Wow.
Like, administrators aren't on campus. Then why should we be on campus?
And get charged the same as if I was taking an on-campus class.
Some people are getting paid more. The tuition has increased actually for CBOE.
Yeah, because there's a lab fee for being online. There's fees for that. And it's kind of obvious that it's just for the money. The only reason that we're there is so that they can keep making money. Because it's a business. It's a business. Education is a business.
Oh, yeah. Education is business. Education is political.
Right.
Go ahead.
We've seen that in our work with Future 21. Madi and I, you and I have seen that in our work with Student Board of Education. Like, it's really obvious when you're on the inside what true intentions are. Mm-hmm. And for us students who value ourselves, who value our peers, value our education, it's not fair to us.
Man, I can speak on that so much, but I want to keep my job. But I can speak on that so much. But I want to keep my job. So I'm not even going to speak about that part, about the money part.
See, and that's the scary thing is that we have to put up disclaimers like that. Like, I'm not gonna, because I might have cut a few things out. Future Madi might have cut a few things out on what I said regarding my customer service job. But I meant it how I said it, right? And the scary thing is, during a pandemic, I can get suspended from school, expelled from school, or fired from my job from saying, hey, you are not following the CDC guidelines for keeping us safe during a global pandemic. And now it's feeling a little bit more national because the US is very behind on catching up to all of the other countries who have, and I'm just gonna come out and say it, but they have access to free healthcare, which also boggles my mind, as I have been searching for healthcare not provided through my employer, because even that is very I'm trying to take a lot of caution here, but as I'm in the search for healthcare, right? I take a look at Medicaid, take a look at what health benefits my employer is offering, and it's so expensive. Whatever route you take, it's expensive, period. And so many other countries are just doing so much better because they have access to free healthcare. And there's so many people in this country who still do not understand that free healthcare for all is necessary, even in the middle of a pandemic. It's kind of like you're just telling us, if you have the money for it, then you can survive. If you don't,
we've been doing that, Madi. I mean, we've had this conversation too, where being poor is so unhealthy. Mm-hmm. You don't have access, even if you did have good healthcare, you don't have access to a good clinic or a doctor's office in your neighborhood. You get food deserts, or you get places that only have fast food, and you can't get to a natural grocer's or even like a regular grocery store for miles. There's so many ways that our health, as people of color and as poor people of color, we get the back end, you know?
Yeah. And I think, and people don't understand just the economic part of it all, of even healthcare. Like, here's the inside of the healthcare thing is just more of just like, my mom, like, I'm using me as an example. My mom cannot work, right? Because of her illness, right? She can't do that. And she was working beforehand, but now since COVID has started, like, she cannot work at all because her immune system is not as strong. So doctors saying you cannot work at all. So she's at home, right? So put that on the kids who have to work, not only to provide for school, but now to help pay rent and stuff like that because the parents can't. Yeah. But then here comes, Section 8 and everyone like that saying, hey, you got to pay this much no matter what. If you don't pay that much, we take away your Section 8. Once you take away that, food stamps go away. Once food stamps go away, your health care can't even use that. All of that is intermingled with one another. And a lot of people don't even know about that. Like, it's like my mom was literally like crying because it was just like, how am I going to be able to get what I need healthcare wise when I can't even work, right? Like a lot of people don't even understand that. Like a lot of these things are intermingled, and it's like during COVID, when you don't have the right system set in place to help these poor people,
everything gets heightened.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Kind of to shift it though, I was looking at that article, Maddie, that you were talking about earlier, and how the school decided to go straight to suspension.
Yeah.
For those students that exposed them. And again, that just like Tony, what you were talking about, it shows that they don't care about the students. They just care about their reputation and the looks of it. And I mean, we can also talk about how I don't like or believe in suspension in no matter your age. I think there's also an article about college students getting suspended for partying without masks on or without social distancing, but especially in public schools and K through 12 public schools, suspension happens way too often, and it disproportionately affects Black boys from ECE, you know. And Tony and I, before this video too, we were talking about how teachers aren't usually equipped to work with students who have behavioral problems or like mental health issues that affect their behaviors, or disabilities, learning disabilities, whatever. And a lot of times that translate into bad behavior. And so then their mental illness, their disability, whatever it is, gets turned into bad behavior. Like the narrative goes that they're just a bad kid, then they get suspended, then they get behind in class, and then we can just talk about then the school to prison and just being behind in class. If you don't know how to read, if you're not caught up reading grade level by third grade, you're never gonna get there. So sorry, I went to suspension because that's what bothered me too. It's just the punishment that those kids were given for standing up for themselves and speaking out and trying to bring awareness to what was going on. They were punished for it, when I don't think that was the right avenue.
Yeah. When is it ever? Right? When is it ever? Like you said, you and I probably go on about how suspension should never happen. It just shouldn't, right? So now I'm just thinking about how in the school's eyes, what is the appropriate way to call them out? Because from my experience, I have tried just about everything, and you get a consequence for just about everything. So is their answer, don't do it at all? Right? Because I've seen, not to call out my alma mater or anything, but there was moments where our bathroom sinks wouldn't work. There were stall doors missing at times, and sometimes you would go into the bathroom and there's no soap. So and there have been other articles that I have seen where students are still getting consequences for calling out colleges, high schools, etc., for not having those services available to their students, especially when, again, the minimum things you can do, the minimum as a person to fight this pandemic, the minimum you can do is wear a mask and wash your hands, and schools are not requiring them. You are not requiring people to wear a mask. You're not requiring students to wear a mask. And on top of that, many of these bathrooms are in dire need of servicing.
So, like, add on to that, I'm gonna play kind of devil's advocate. Is high schoolers are so hard to deal with anyway. Like, high schoolers and middle schools, to me, because I'm an early childhood education major and I like the little ones, the older kids are so hard to deal with, I think. And at the same time, it's probably really difficult to enforce 400 kids to wear a mask.
It's not difficult to refill your soap dispensers, though, I think.
Think about schools that don't get that funding. like my school, we didn't have paper for a whole year. We couldn't buy paper for a whole year. And that's what schools kind of run on our worksheets, which is a different conversation. But at the same time, like if we don't, I agree that we need to have funding for the basic necessities like soap, toilet paper, and pads and tampons. But at the same time, it's not a reality in a lot of places.
Right. And I feel like a lot of the speaking out comes on behalf of teachers and students, right? I think since the teacher protests, I have seen, at least in my community, that the teachers and the students have become a united front. What we need is more administrators and upper district management to be yelling and screaming at whoever provides funding, right? And be like, these are the basic necessities, get them into every school now. But not everybody benefits from every school having those resources. Although that sounds crazy, not everybody benefits from a school doing good, which is insane to me and has been insane to me since I was 16. But say that one more time.
It's business and it's politics.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard to really say what the solution to that is, but really it comes down to if you really want a solution to it, right? If you really want people to wear a mask, you can sit down and you can discuss and just go back and forth on figuring out how can we enforce them to wear a mask without getting them out of the school, right? That's the point. Because like the thing is, like even here, the first week, like no one wanted to wear a mask. And I'd argue that sometimes these college students and frat kids can be way more hard-headed than the high school teens, right? Or just as hard-headed. But as we kept going deeper into it and they saw like, dang, we're getting in trouble a lot, right? For not wearing a mask. So you know what? I'm going to wear a mask. But it was never getting in trouble like we're throwing you out of class, we're throwing you out of school, you're out of residence halls. No, it was okay. We're documenting these things. Mm-hmm. You will be having conversations, right? There will be consequences. And when they started these consequences, it's like, okay, let me start following these rules, right? Mm-hmm. Let me start wearing these masks. And so now there's more people wearing masks, right? Now this is and I'm speaking on my experiences, right? Because I don't know, especially from like poorer schools, it's like, well, one question is, what if certain students can't afford a mask? Okay, cool. That's something we also have to think about as well. That's something that, like you guys said, could be on this district of, we need more money for masks. We need more money for hand sanitizer and stuff like that. But I also think it, in a sense, falls on no one wants to talk about these big companies as well. I mean, why can't you also donate these supplies? Why can't rich individuals who has the money, who has the resources, why can't you donate those supplies, right? And like, I think those supplies need to be donated as well, especially if the government has all of this money to throw at to save these companies. If you have money to throw at them, you have to have money to throw at these schools to say, hey, look, you need these things. You need what, masks? You need, if some kids cannot go to school because of health problems, so they have to take care of their family because of times of COVID, cool, let's supply them with either an iPad or a laptop or something they can use to be at home and they can learn at home because they cannot be in that particular area at that particular time because it's dangerous for them and their families. It all goes back to having this conversation and people being willing to do it. Yeah. The last part about providing the iPads and stuff, I'm iffy on that because not everyone can afford Wi-Fi and stuff. That one's a whole different thing. But as far as the in-school part, it's a lot of conversation with the administration, with the teachers, and just with companies and people like that.
Yeah. And we can definitely.
I think what Mari was saying too about having like a united front with teachers and students, we have to remember, like in our work too, as student ambassadors, student activists, whatever, our work was always kind of like having that partnership or trying to create a partnership with administration, because a lot of times students aren't seen as people, right? And we actually are, and we have really good ideas. Like, this is why we have this podcast, you know, because we have good ideas, we have good things to talk about. So yeah, it's just making those partnerships and making those connections and working together, like you were saying, Tony.
Yeah, and it starts with providing the opportunity. Like here, when I'm starting my organization here to give an opportunity to people who want to actually speak out, right? That have that opportunity to speak up, also to have that knowledge to speak out too, right? And I think that's really what we need, is we need an individual from these schools, right? To make a place where we can show that united front, because there's no place, no environment for them to do that, or there's no place for them to even learn how to do that. Like, not a lot of people know about the meetings that their schools have, right? I'm missing the word right now, but I know you guys know what I'm talking about. But the meetings for those, right? The meetings for their communities, community council meetings, right? All of those things that you can go to as a student. Like, anyone can go to these places. They don't know how to. They don't know where it is. They don't know when it is. None of that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So before I forget, Lucero, I want to go back to the point that you were talking about now we have to consider, how are we treating other people in regards to germs, in regards to sanitation. I saw this brilliant video back in March, I believe, where a teacher was teaching preschool students, and she was talking to them about germs and washing their hands and why it was important to wash their hands. And I don't know if this was a video that came out recently or has just found its way to circulate the internet again, but she took that science experiment of having water in a bowl, pepper flakes, and then dipping a Q-tip into some soap. And when you dip the Q-tip into the bowl with the little pepper flakes disperse. It was such a brilliant way to teach preschool students what washing your hands does for your health, right? I think even just going back to those basics, and rather than being like, you have to wear a mask, is, hi, students, this is what doing a mask does for you, does for other people. This is what washing your hands does for you, does for other people. And teaching more of that self-awareness, right? And it makes me think, in schools, in-person schools, we are now discovering or rediscovering or shedding more light on, right? Because we've been new, that schools enforce more, just do what I say, do what I'm telling you to do, rather than this is how X, Y, and Z is going to keep you safe or is going to be good for your future, right? Rather than telling somebody, go to college. It's, hey, these are the perks of going to college. These are the perks of not going to college. Which route are you going to choose to take, right? And I think the same thing can be said for wearing a mask. This is the route this is what will happen when you wear a mask. This is what will happen when you don't. This is what happens when you wash your hands, you know? And I think, yes, youth tends to think very selfishly. So why not make wearing masks and washing your hands and sanitation all about taking care of yourself, right? All about, and teaching a little bit more about self-love. And you know, I think even when we are selfish, we tend to think about the people that we hold closest to us. And many times we don't care about issues until they are directly affecting us. So how can you flip the script to say, this is directly affecting you, and this is what you can do to help prevent it or take care of yourself as it's happening? So I just wanted to shout out that video because I thought it was it's the best thing ever because you hear the preschoolers in the background go, wow, as the pepper flakes like disperse. And I think a little bit of that childlike wonder is still left within us. And I hope that our nation's leaders are, I would hope, right? I wish that our nation's leaders would focus a little bit more on the teaching part of it. And I think we all have something to learn from teachers. I hope that they focus more on teaching people why this is so dangerous to you and why and how you can prevent it and how you can keep yourself safe, rather than just saying you should do this at this time.
Well, I got a question.
Yes.
How can you expect like people to really think about others when in this society we live with the ideology of not really like just gimme, 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 take, like it's like for myself kind of deal. Like, how can we install that in the others and we're also installing them that type of mentality and ideology too?
I think the same way we instill fear, and I know that sounds horrible, but media, especially especially Univision and Telemundo and all them, love to instill fear on our people, right? This is how many people are dying. This is how many people, blah, 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 Fox News, CNN, whatever it may be. Fear is instilled through us. Fear is instilled in us through media. I think media has a big responsibility right now, and I think they have been neglecting that responsibility and have been exploiting that responsibility that they do have. So I would hope that the teaching comes from there. It comes from reliable sources, that you don't bring someone on and say, this person is a doctor, that they actually have the facts and the data to back it up rather than just, this is my face and I'm telling you X, Y, and Z, and don't worry about the pandemic. It's not real, right? I'm sorry, Tony. I spaced out in the middle of my question. I don't know. I just had a brain fart. So was there a second portion to what you had asked me?
So I guess like the follow up on the question, like even if like educating about them, like they can see that it's wrong. I think a lot of people like would know, like, yeah, people are dying. Like a lot of people know that old people and like young people are dying based off of it, but they still don't care. How can we teach them to care in a society that teaches them like that is just all about caring about yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can we like instill that to them when we're instilling them in another ideology that says the exact opposite?
Yeah, everyone has someone, right? Everyone has someone. Saying children will survive this because they have strong immune systems, right? I would hope that instead of saying that, you say everyone is at risk. Everyone, young, old, newborn, infant to old age, we are all at risk. Man, and we just live in such a messed up system that barely ever encourages your physical health. Not to glorify the Obamas, because I don't think any human should be glorified. When Michelle Obama was in office, I thoroughly enjoyed seeing commercials on screen that she would push and enforce through media about health, about getting outside, about playing, about, and to be very honest, I don't see a lot of that anymore. And I haven't for the past 4 years.
Remember?
So, huh?
Do you guys remember when like, this is like totally off topic, but remember when like Nickelodeon used to do the like worldwide like day of play? Like,
Yes.
So like no shows and every kid just goes outside.
Yes. Exactly. And it's not, and I feel like this could be another different topic, but it's like now, again, we live in the era of the internet. What do we want to do? We want to be inside on our phones, playing video games, etc. And I'm going to sound really like, out of my generation right now, but it's a huge problem, right? I don't see as many as of my nieces and nephews doing what we did when we were kids, as I was rolling around in the mud, right? I know that like Game Boys and PlayStations existed when I was little, but I was poor, so I didn't have any of those things. I got a Wii maybe in like 8th grade, and then that was pretty much it. Um, but I see my little nieces and nephews walking around like this everywhere they go, and you take it away and it's a temper tantrum, right? But what if something like this, right? Do y'all remember the Pokemon Go fucking craze? Oh my god, I've never seen so many people outside in my life. It was awesome. And like I know there was like really bad downsides to it if you're like on your phone and walking through the street, right?
I had a nightmare about Pokemon Go.
No way.
I did just a few weeks ago, and it was like a thing. And then someone actually kidnapped my cousin, and then I was on the bus trying to save her, and then I saved her. I threw her out the bus, and then I felt like I threw myself out the bus, and then the person who kidnapped her came after me and started torturing me and was like, "Where are they? Where are they?" And then they put arrows in my hands.
The Pokemon? Where are the Pokemon?
Yeah, I think because that's how it started. And then they put arrows in my hands and stuck it to the grass.
No.
That's so
Lucero,
dark. Are you okay?
Oh no. We will have a different segment for Lucero's lucid dreams. Lucero's vivid dreams. That's what the segment is gonna be called. But yeah, it's hard to tell people go outside right now, but I have been getting a lot of YouTube ads. And maybe now it's not so much commercial ads as it should be, like internet ads, encouraging people to go outside, to play, to spend time on a bike. Yes.
How did we get to going outside from Tony's question of how do we
I would hope that the United States is encouraging the benefit of being healthy rather than the benefit of eating Popeyes or eating McDonald's. And like, we get I at least get a lot more commercials for sweets and fast food than I do for being encouraged to be healthy, right? Other than we provide the best expensive healthcare, right? This is how you can keep yourself healthy. And I think we get people to care first by getting them to care about their own health. And I don't think we live in a society where we care about our own health until our health is bad, right? Until we are not healthy. So
I think too, Tony,
that's the only way I see
it. Have to have like a whole shift in conversation about everything. In order to get you to care about other people, you also have to think like we live in a society where it's bring yourself forward, like you go to school so that you can have a better life, right? And like you were talking about earlier, we don't generational wealth, right? We don't talk about that. We don't talk about, I'm going to school so that my family after me has more than I had. We say, I'm going to school so that I can buy myself a really nice car, or so that I can buy myself a really nice house, or so that I can go on vacation. Like we have to think about, we have to change the narrative of how much we are valuing ourselves, which, I mean, we should always value ourselves, but we should also remember that we are part of a community, part of a whole, whether it's just like your neighborhood, whether it's your family or whatever. And we also have to maybe make it more obvious how your actions can affect somebody else. I think we also just live in this world where we kind of have tunnel vision, and we see only our actions in our life, and we don't really think about how our actions branch out to somebody else's life.
Yeah.
And so once we can understand that, I think we can also understand, we can say, that person probably doesn't want to get sick, or I care about that person because their actions have consequences on me, and my actions have consequences on them. So therefore, I'm going to wear this mask so that they don't have to worry about it, and then hope that they do the same for me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a collective consciousness is missing. As Lucero was talking, that word came into my brain, consciousness, where you realize that your actions affect your own narrative. Because I've seen a lot of like Twitter jokes about, oh my God, my little brother has his own life. Like I thought he was just a side character in my story or whatever. Right. And it's like, well, yeah, everybody has their own life, and your actions are going to affect their narrative. Their actions are going to affect yours. So realizing, really waking up and waking everybody up that the world doesn't revolve around you, is really hard. It's really hard because we're a selfish creature in nature, and it's a shock to me that even throughout this pandemic, so many people are still asleep to that. Their consciousness is still asleep, and not even the shock of a global pandemic makes you wake up to the fact that the world doesn't revolve around you, and it's not just about you, and it's not just your life. And of course, you have to take care of yourself, right? But it's not all about you, and that's really hard to hear for some people.
Yeah. And I mean, I would disagree with you on the one thing of like humans are naturally selfish creatures, mainly because like looking back, like at our history, at our origin, like we were never selfish, like hunters and gatherers, Neolithic era, like we weren't, like we did it all for like our community, right? But as we went shifted more into feudalism, all of those different societies, and we became more self-centered. But human by nature is not self-centered. I mean, that's the reason why a lot of what we do is centered around each other. As far as like, I mean, the reason why I'm going to be accepted by other people, right, is because, like back in the Neolithic era is more just like, or not Neolithic, Paleolithic era is more just like, we need each other to survive, right?
Yeah.
So some of that's in our subconscious. But I think the reason why I asked that question is because I think so many people are so astonished and surprised about how everyone's been, how our society has been, handling the coronavirus, and keep saying, yo, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? Why can't more people do this? And it's like, well, you have to realize the society that we grew up in, it's not an easy fix, because in this type of society, in the gimme type of society, it's always about you. So if you're okay, if you can still make your money and make your profit and your family is okay, why should you care about someone else's family? Like, they should be doing that themselves, right? Taking care of yourself. And I think that's something that we have to keep in mind. Like, every single person has to keep that in mind. If you really want to make a change into the future and not have anything like this happen again, we really got to take a look at the status quo and what we were teaching these kids from a young age and say, is this really what we need to be instilling in them as a moral compass? You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Any other closing remarks before we wrap up this episode?
No, I don't think so.
Music.
Yeah. So let's do a very quick song of the day. We're wrapping up this episode now. I don't know if I need to say that, but it has come time that we talk about our song of the day today. And I do not have mine pulled up yet. So whoever wants to go first can go ahead and go first.
Lit. All right. So my song of the day is Georgia Smith, By Any Means. For me, that song has been just, it's just been my favorite song for the past week. Just because it's so soulful, but too, it encompasses every single thing that, like, I feel at this time, especially during at the time of the protests and everything like that. This is a really beautiful song. Like, if you can listen to it, definitely listen to it. Promise you, you will not be disappointed.
You got yours, Lucero?
No.
Okay, mine is, I'm trying to see what era it's from. Is this 80s? But I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor. I think that's how you pronounce her name. One of my favorite songs of all time. My most favorite memory I have associated with this song is Miss Kilcoyne, our high school social studies teacher. I never had her as a teacher, and yet through the work I did through student activism, she was one of the teachers who was most encouraging of my social justice recklessness. And even though I never had her as a teacher, she was amazingly loud and wonderful. And Miss Kilcoyne, if you're watching, I love you so much. Thank you for encouraging that side of me, because here I am now. And I remember her walking in one day, no, not walking in, strutting in as this song is playing in the background, as we're singing karaoke to it in choir class, and she just walks right in, starts belting this song, and it's just one of the most wonderful moments I had in high school, is just remembering her walking in and belting that song, and then all of us belting the song because she was singing it and she was killing it. And I really connect with the lyrics. I have had an interesting couple of months, not just due to the pandemic, not just due to my personal life, but so many other things. And regardless, I will not let it break me. I will not let it break me, and I will not let it make me crumble. I will not let it turn off my dreams. And for a moment, I was ready to give up on this. I was ready to give up on the podcast. I was like, you know, maybe I'm not equipped for this. I don't think I'm the right person to gather other people and make this happen. But here I am, and it's a testament to being a survivor. And I'm only a survivor because I have wonderful, wonderful people like you who encouraged me to keep going. So thank you so much. I love y'all a million, and I dedicate that song to both of you and to our viewers out there. You will survive too. We're all survivors.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's not the I'm a survivor, it's not that one. But that one too.
The context, or like the memory that I have of that song, is 5th grade CMAS, and I will survive even without a calculator right here by my side.
Is that how you sing it every time now?
Yeah, it is actually. It is called Oceans by Hillsong United, and it's this very beautiful Christian song, or just like faith oriented song that I really love.
Yes, ma'am. That's what I'm talking.
I have a cover to that song in the works, by the way. Coming out. What do you mean, oh no? I'm gonna cut that part out too. Not hurt my feelings. I know I'm late to the trend, Tony, but damn.
I'm sorry. I have to call you out.
You have to call me out on my self-absorbedness.
Yeah, also because I've heard you sing, it is not good.
Listen, coming from the guy who thinks Guardians of the Galaxy is not funny, I don't trust your opinion, okay?
Okay.
Might as well hate Marvel as a whole, okay?
Okay, that's a reach. That's a reach.
Did you not read the comics?
Guardians of the Galaxy is trash. I'm gonna stand by it. I don't care.
I think this is where we end the episode.
Okay.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening. We truly and deeply appreciate you all tuning in. I think we had over 400 views on our very first episode, which is incredible. And I think those views are coming from Facebook. Let me double check before I say anything super extremely exciting and then it not being true. And people are like, Maddie, actually, you only had 200 views. Because I know there will be one person in the comments who'll be like, actually.
More than 100 views? I only expected it to get like 10 or like 10 or 20.
I know. Okay, we got close to
188 on Facebook.
We got close to 400 views on our very first episode. 388 views.
13 on YouTube, so we know that YouTube maybe isn't our
it's probably not our platform, but yes, we do have this podcast.
Sorry, I was gonna ask a question. Do we still want me to put this up on Spotify and Apple Music and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Let's do it.
Okay, then I'm just gonna put the audio up for the podcast then.
Nice. Alrighty. So make sure you catch the audio for episode 1 on all streaming platforms.
Not yet, because they have to get approved still.
Okay. So we will be putting up updates as we continue spreading and growing our platforms. But for now, we are posting on Facebook and on YouTube primarily. So make sure to check these out. And thank you so much for 388 views on our very first podcast. That is amazing. We really thought only 10 people would be watching. 5 of them being our team. So thank you all so much for supporting. Please go ahead and follow all of our social medias. We are Power to the People Pod on both Facebook and Instagram. And if you have any suggestions on who we should bring onto the podcast, we are always open to those. So please shoot us an email at powertothepeoplepod@gmail.com, which Lucero has been so kind to manage right now, and she will be setting up those meetings and making those introductions as well. These do not have to be specifically high schoolers and college students. It could be anyone. We are open to spreading the voice of the movement through youth activism. It's by youth, for youth. So the audience, our intended audience, is youth. But we can have absolutely anyone on here. And well, maybe not absolutely anyone, because if President Trump were to ask to be on the podcast, I would. Well, I guess that means anybody. Again, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Peace.
Bye.